It was dumping rain when I pulled to the curb. A stranger climbed in, drenched. When she left, her purse stayed behind, no wallet inside. Just a heavy brass key. And a sealed letter in my late grandmother's handwriting. Hi, Maya here. Today's story is about a test I didn't know I was taking, a home I thought I'd lost, and a letter that changed everything. For a year, I lived small. 1 bedroom with a den, small. Portland, gray sky, small. Bills in a stack, hope on the bottom. My grandmother Estelle had passed the previous autumn. The house that held my childhood, the gabled craftsman in Laurelhurst with the climbing roses, was gone. My Uncle Lucas told me it had to be sold to pay debts. He slid me an envelope with a number so insulting it felt like a joke you're too tired to call out. I took it. I went home. I folded my grief into corners. On a Tuesday that smelled like wet cedar and bus exhaust, I saw her. An elderly woman in a thin coat at a stop with no shelter, clutching 2 paper bags already melting into pulp. I almost drove by. Daycare pickup, double shift after, gaslight blinking. Then she looked up, not pleading, just steady. The way my grandma used to look at broken things before she fixed them. Please let me give you a ride, I said. She hesitated, then nodded. If you're sure. I'm Nora. Maya, I said, helping her in. My son's car seat, stray toy cars, the coffee cup I kept forgetting to throw away. The interior smelled like rain and cinnamon gum. Nora asked the kind of questions people only ask if they're listening for real. About my boy, my work at the diner, my grandmother's roses. I told her more than I meant to. About Estelle's house, about the debts, about the way a door can close and echo for months. You loved her, she said softly. She sounds indomitable. The rain softened to a whisper by the time we reached her senior building. I insisted on carrying the disintegrating bags to her door. You have a kind heart, Maya, Nora said, eyes bright. Estelle would be proud. Heat crawled up my neck. You knew my grandmother? In Portland, she said with a private smile. Very few truly good women go unknown. I didn't think about it again until later, when my son was home, bathed, and snoring with a stuffed otter under his arm. I went back down for my umbrella and saw it on the passenger seat, a velvet clutch, dark blue, old-fashioned, wrong in my Macy car like a violin in a toolbox. I opened it to find a single antique key and a sealed cream envelope addressed to me. The cursive was unmistakable. Estelle's hand. Sharp, playful loops. The Y in my name hooked like she always did it when she was pleased. My breath went ragged. I cracked the red wax. My dearest Maya, if you are holding this, our game of patience worked. I read in the lamplight, knees pulled up under me, rain tapping the window like a metronome. Estelle wrote of Lucas the way only a mother can, clear-eyed and kinder than truth. Not evil weak, addicted to the easy story, the fast dollar, the applause of people who take their hands off first. She feared he would sell the house the way he'd sell anything, quick, clean, to the highest bidder, and call it what needed to be done. So she'd set a plan in motion years earlier. The deed transferred into a private trust managed by the only person she trusted to read hearts as well as documents. Her best friend of 60 years, Nora Lynn. A trust with quiet teeth. If Lucas tried to sell, the title would scream when it reached the county recorder. If anyone forged, amended, corrected, or refiled, a sealed affidavit would open at the bank. There was more. A safe deposit box key taped beneath the letter. If this letter found you, the key is for you too, Estelle wrote. Nora will know which branch. In the box are receipts and timelines, because love can be tender and still bring its receipts. I laughed through tears. That was my grandmother. lavender sachets in the linen closet, and ledgers balanced to the penny. "This is not legal advice," she added, as if she could hear her own attorney chuckling. "But it is a grandmother's advice. Be brave, be kind, be documented." The key in the clutch was for the front door, the one I thought strangers were walking through now. I drove, across Burnside, up 39th, left where the trees hold the street like a chapel. The roses along the fence had gone feral beautiful in their disobedience. I slid the key into the lock. The click sounded like my name being said right. The air inside held the faintest ghost of vanilla and library dust. I trailed my fingers over the carved banister, the piano with the sticky middle C, the row of sun-faded recipe cards magneted to the fridge. The house didn't look sold. It looked paused. I called Lucas. "What is it?" He answered, brittle with importance. "I'm in a meeting." "Funny," I said, steady. "For a home that was sold. Estelle's place looks great. I just unlocked it." Silence, thick and animal. "Then, how did you get in?" "That's breaking and entering." "It's called a key," I said, "given to me by the person who legally owns it." "Who?" "Nora." Another silence. I could hear the shape of his panic like a dog skittering on hardwood. He told a story and then lived inside it so long he forgot it needed walls. "We'll talk," he managed. "There were complications." "Yes," I said, "like you telling me a fairy tale and taking a bow." I hung up before his voice could shapeshift again. Nora arrived with a manila folder and a bottle of champagne. We sat at Estelle's old oak table, the one with the burn mark from a pie tin she swore had been set on a triva well. We popped the cork with a towel over it. The sound was soft, respectful. "Estelle adored schematics," Nora said. "People thought her roses were wild. She planned every cane. The trust is the same." Inside the folder, the deed into trust, Estelle's notarized letter to the bank, dated years before the sale, and a copy of an email Lucas had sent a real estate agent with the subject line, "Need to move fast, no paper trail." Attached was a draft listing for a quiet, off-market cash buyer, the kind of buyer who prefers to forget things. The safe deposit box was at a credit union off Sandy. Inside, Estelle had left a recorded message on a tiny USB stick, a ledger, and photocopies of promissory notes Lucas had drafted to justify debts. They were sloppy wrong dates, a signature line Estelle never used, interest rates that would get laughed out of any court. Estelle anticipated all of it. She kept originals of everything that mattered, and she taught Nora to do the same. We made a plan. Step 1. Record the condition of the house, the mailbox, the utilities, quiet proof that nothing had changed hands. Step 2. Estelle's attorney filed the trust documents with a memo so dry it was essentially legal tinder. Step 3. Nora executed the successor clause, transferring title from trust to me. The papers wore their own armor, every signature witnessed, every date anchored. When Lucas tried to bluster through it, the county clerk's system flagged the trust's protective filing. His lawyer called, using words like misunderstanding and family solution, and "we can avoid court if we can," Nora said sweetly, by following Estelle's written instructions. There was still a storm to come, the kind that whips your hair and makes you shout to be heard. Lucas went online. He'd painted himself a victim in the only colors he knows. Poor me, ungrateful niece, manipulative friend. He forgot the city is small and the internet is forever. He forgot Estelle taught half the neighborhood's kids piano for cookies and kindness. He forgot how many people will line up to tell the truth when you remember their names. I didn't post. I pruned roses and kept receipts. If you're into stories where quiet documentation beats loud lies, tap the like and subscribe. It helps this channel and it tells the algorithm you want more quiet power over the chaos. When the hearing date came, the courtroom felt like a dentist's office, bright, clean, unforgiving. The judge read the trust like a recipe and raised an eyebrow at Lucas's debts the way Estelle used to when I salted too early. "Do you have original loan documents?" the judge asked. Lucas's lawyer cleared his throat. "We have. Copies." Nora's attorney slid forward the ledger. Dates, amounts. Estelle's tidy notes. Who paid, how, when. "Opposing party claimed exigent debts," he said. "Here's the account of a woman who balanced roses and calculus." Lucas opened his mouth and the judge closed it with a look. The order that followed didn't gloat. It simply recognized what was and what had always been. Title confirmed. Attempted transfer, void. Fees assessed to the party who created the smoke and then screamed, "Fire." Afterward, Lucas stood in the hallway and looked smaller than my memory. "It was supposed to be mine," he said. Not to me, not to anyone, but to a story that had finally stopped answering back. "It was never yours," I said gently, "and you knew that." He flinched at gentleness more than at any sharp word. Back at the house, Nora and I carried Estelle's quilts out to the line on a day with sun like lemon water. My son chased a blue butterfly into the shade and found a marble I'd lost at 8. The piano's sticky middle C, still sticky. The porch swing? Still groaned when it hit the far arc, like it was remembering a joke it once heard and half forgot. "What will you change?" Nora asked. "Paint," I said. "Curtains. The broken tile in the pantry, not the bones." We kept Estelle's evidence file in a fireproof box and a copy at the attorney's. Timelines, screenshots, logs. The ordinary armor people forget they can wear. This is not legal advice. It is love with labels. Summer slipped into a kinder autumn. I learned the roses by their temperaments. Belle Epoque temperamental as a cat. Mr. Lincoln dignified, not a drama. My son started kindergarten and brought home construction paper with a house drawn in green crayon. Too many windows. Sun in the corner with sunglasses. "Ours," he wrote above the roof in serious letters. That was the only appraisal that mattered. On Thursday nights, Nora and I sat on the porch, iced tea sweating in mason jars, and told stories about Estelle that were really about endurance. How she learned to fix a leaking pipe by asking the right questions. How she kept a ledger like a diary, lines of figures that spelled, "We made it," in math. Sometimes I thought about that bus stop on the day the sky fell too low. The act that felt small and obvious. I didn't pass a test. I just did a thing my grandmother would have done without fuss. Maybe that's all character is. Small choices made when no one is watching that end up unlocking the big doors. I keep the brass key on a hook by the kitchen door. It is heavy and honest. When I hold it, I feel Estelle's hand steady on mine, guiding, not forcing. A door doesn't have to slam to be firm. It can close with the softest click and still say, "No further." If this house is a fortress, it is one with an open gate for friends, for music, for anyone who needs a place to come in out of the rain. I thought I had lost my home. I hadn't. I had just needed to learn the route back. Weeks passed, and the house began to answer back. I learned the way the floorboard near the dining room sighs at dusk, the exact angle the afternoon light takes to turn the piano's varnish to amber. I oiled the porch swing chains and left them squeaking on purpose. Some sounds are a signature. On Saturdays, my son and I made a ritual of house rounds. He carried a clipboard with boxes to tick: mail, gutters, basement, boiler, pantry. The list started as a game and became a language. "We're keeping watch," I told him. "On what?" he he asked. On what is ours? I said. One evening, Nora arrived with a shoebox labeled in Estelle's hand, Keepshare. Inside were things that looked like nothing. The church bazaar badge, a faded raffle ticket, the brass number from an old hotel room in Astoria. But when you hold them, they hum. Under those trinkets, a cassette, scotch-taped with a note. If you still have something to play me on. Nora laughed. Of course she did. We borrowed a thrift store deck and pressed play. Estelle's voice unspooled into the living room, warm and crisp as a fresh apple. She told a story about overwatering roses the year she started, then learning to watch the leaves instead of the soil. Roots don't need drama, she said. They need steadiness. She paused, and I could hear her teacup click the saucer. If you're listening, it means we did the steady thing. I pressed my palm to the coffee table the way you rest a hand on a sleeping dog, grateful just for the rise and fall. Word spread without posts. Mr. Hernandez from 3 doors down brought over a photo of Estelle teaching his daughter scales, tiny fingers, and stubborn concentration. She made us feel like we already belonged, he said. I copied the photo and gave the original back. You don't fix belonging by hoarding it. I wrote a letter I never sent. Lucas, it began, you could have asked to be part of this. You chose a shortcut, and now you think you're far. You're not. You're just lost. I tucked it into Estelle's ledger as a reminder to myself. Choosing the long way is still a choice. The roses took to pruning. I cut with a map in mind, not punishment. Dead wood out, air through, canes tied loosely with soft fabric torn from one of Estelle's aprons. I kept the stains turmeric, cherries, a line of cocoa like a constellation. You don't rewrite a life to keep it pretty. You preserve it to keep it true. On a wet Wednesday, a letter came from the county recorder confirming chain of title. The phrase was so mild it felt like a joke. Chains can be a comfort when they keep a thing anchored instead of bound. I filed it in the fireproof box and made a duplicate for Nora. Receipts, timelines, logs, quiet architecture. This is not legal advice. This is how you tell the future the truth. I fixed the piano's sticky middle C with cotton swabs and patience. The key rose clean, then fell true. My son banged out heart and soul with the tyranny of the enthusiastic. We applauded like a crowd. The house asked for small things and offered large ones. A draft under the back door, a neighbor who'd been waiting for somewhere to sit and talk. The feeling rare and simple of finishing a day already full. Nights I slept with the window open and let the rain edit the air. Once, outside the grocery, I saw Lucas at a distance. He noticed me and looked away, then back, then down. His face carried new lines. If he'd walked over, I would have listened. Instead, he left with nothing in his hands, and I went home to a list that welcomed me. We planted beans along the far fence and a small row of strawberries my son promised to protect from imagined crows. Nora taught him to gently lift a leaf with the back of a finger. Ask, don't grab, she said. Plants like it better that way. People do too. We hosted a porch sale, not for money, but to rehome Estelle's doubles. Extra pie tins, 2 identical watering cans, 5 sets of measuring spoons, all reading 1 honest cup. Neighbors came, told their Estelle stories, left with 1 item and a recipe card. By noon, the porch felt lighter. By evening, the house felt bigger somehow, as if it had inhaled. At night, when the dishwasher ticks down and the neighborhood presses into quiet, I walk the rooms. I stand in doorways and let the thresholds do their work. A doorway is just a promise with wood around it. You don't realize how many you cross until you look back. I thought justice would feel like a verdict. It feels like routine trash night, pantry labels, a clean filter, a folded quilt waiting on the arm of a chair. It feels like not flinching when you turn your own key. One last thing I didn't expect. The house gives me endings that are also starts. The ledger closed, the new blank book open, the roses cut, the vase is full. The tape stopped, the room still speaking. And on the nail by the kitchen door, the brass key waits, where I can see it as I pass heavy, plain, certain. It doesn't glitter. It doesn't need to. It just fits.